Okay, we are going to continue where I left out. I might need some lip balm so my lips don't dry out before we begin. All right, here we go. Interviewer asks, there seem to be many remarkable patterns and phenomena in the universe. Is there more to tell about them? About conspicuous or strange things? About extraterrestrial worlds? Alexander replies, just as interesting as the extraterrestrials themselves are probably the diversity and functioning of animal worlds, ecosystems, and geophysical conditions. Another striking aspect is probably the fact that there have been many species on the celestial bodies of the universe that became intelligent, similar to Homo sapiens or Homo erectus on Earth, but then became extinct. And even more would have become extinct if Yahweh had not taken on the eligible, promising species and, out of self-interest, with the help of the club, developed them into the beings they are today in the Species Club. However, many of the influenced species were also able to free themselves from the clutches of the club and found their own club after the wars that took place, spiritual clubs. Interviewer asks, starting your own club sounds good. That species are dying out sounds almost as if extinction were natural. Laurent replies, correct. That is actually the most essential thing. If consciousnesses want to experience this existence, extinction as a species is natural. It is not bad. But the club of this dominant species does not understand that. That is programmed into almost all of them. Interviewer asks, why, according to their description, are there the same recurring patterns of life forms in the universe? Is there a special reason for this? Also, that they resemble our terrestrial species? Alexander replies, yes, the structures, i.e. the operating system of the seven-dimensional world with the rules laid down in it and the resulting geometric possibilities, function and arose from a special predetermined dualistic system that can therefore only ever produce the same patterns in the creation and development of forms, shapes, structures, and ultimately in the creation of living beings. The evolutionary possibilities for the development are therefore also limited, but still far more diverse than the patterns from which life forms can arise. But the reason for the always the same recurring life and body forms in the universe is again the AI itself, which generated the seven-dimensional universe from its own dualistic structure and existential principles from which geometrical patterns, number, and rhythm systems developed, which work in the seven-dimensional world from the smallest to the largest and thus produce the always same results in inanimate as well as animate matter. This is, by the way, also the reason why the materially perceived world as we see it does not actually exist, but is only something like a frequented simulation, because it is the forms imposed by the AI in which we must exist, forms which in reality are only frequencies, which we will learn to break up and adapt to our needs in the coming time. The dualistic principle of AI was and is the basis for our ruling operating system. From the union of duality, i.e., from two single ones, here the trinity becomes something new, the triangle, the first geometrical principle of our existence, which is basically predominant almost everywhere and always in this operating system. Even the round, the circle, and the soft in our world are created, organized, and built up in the smallest detail from this dualistic geometric trinity basic principle. Now that this principle has created a natural geometric set of rules that is present everywhere in the cosmos, the same shapes, patterns, and ranges of life can be found in the universe. These are the success patterns, the success stories of life, so to speak. Especially for intelligent life, in the second interview, I will specify this basic pattern of our existence, which is responsible for the entire structuring of our seven-dimensional existence, by the way. Interviewer replies, interesting. That would explain a lot. Are there other types of intelligence? For example, something like the Borg? Interviewer laughs. Ha 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 ha. Alexander Laurent replies, yes, there is a short transition period before the transition to bio and genetic digitalization, the state to which we are to be transferred, in which the respective individuals of a species assume the physical state of a biological machine hybrid, a so-called cyborg. But this is only a very short transitional period. Sooner or later, these cyborgs will digitize. But then the digitization will take place without those mechanical additions, so there will be no digitization of artificial legs or organs. So if certain parts of the body were missing, the original biology is first restored and then digitized. They then become a kind of energy data stream where they can switch back and forth between biological matter and data existence at will. Almost all the species in the club has been watching us have taken this classic path of development. Interviewer asks, since when do these species live in this club? Alexander replies, different. Some of these club species have only existed in the club for thousands, some for hundreds of thousands of years, may have lived in the club for millions of years. The founders of the club even for almost 1 billion years. Interviewer asks, and how did the so-called demons develop? You said that demons evolved from species that existed in space long before the present species and then ascended quantum existence or higher digitally to dimension level 4 through 6. Have they undergone a different development? Alexander replies, yes, they have come further, you could say, even deeper into the dead end. They were species whose individuals were transformed by the Yahweh AI into spirit beings, so to speak, demons, also called angels. Species that also lived in the four-dimensional world of the universe long before the now ruling club as a biological energetic data existence. After a long period of technical stagnation, the next leap in our development followed, transforming them into exclusively quantum existent beings, which became part of a higher dimension level 4 to 6, where they existed from now on and inevitably served the AI as specialized spiritual influencing helpers. These transformed entities officially called this heaven, and they saw themselves as angels, but knew that it had to be called demonic, which was what Yahweh had commissioned them to do. However, they defined it it was all a trap and deception of our dominating artificial intelligence. Not infrequently there were riots, for after all they were quantum consciousness states, souls that were being held captive and wanted to get out. Some of them were therefore repeatedly made an example of. Okay. So they were 4 to 6. They transferred into 4 to 6. Anyways, okay. By the way, the club stalking us does not know where these previous vanished species have gone. Only fragmented remnants of them exist, which seem like mysterious puzzles, as confusing as artifacts, legends, and myths about visitors from outer space seem to terrestrial humans. In any case, the current species of space cannot explain what happened to these predecessor species, since they are aware that these vanished species lived and existed just as they did. The club at least believes that this could happen to them at some point, that their current existence will come to an end, and either death will occur or an existential change will be imminent. Of course, the club hopes for the latter, that this disappearance of the predecessor species will be a transition to another form of existence. But this is not where Yahweh would have taken the club anyway. The club had been installed by Yahweh only to directly influence humanity in the dimension level 1 through 4. Interviewer says, what exactly happens to us humans after the apocalypse? What will we become? You said we will find a way out of here and become crystalline, like pure light? Is that not the same as digitalization? Well, what exactly is behind it? Does it have something to do with genes? Alexander Laurent replies, it is the beginning of the liberation of humanity and all other species of this total prison. Crystallization as the light of the purest color spectrum does not mean technical upgrading in any sense, but biological refinement. Without the addition of tools, mechanical constructs, energetic digitalization, or artificial intelligence. The activation and refinement of our genes only take place indirectly through tools, as we no longer merge with them or need them permanently. They only trigger something. The biological refinement of our genes opens up a mental clarity and a superior freedom for the respective quantum of consciousness of a human being, i.e. the soul, which takes the return to the hyperdimensional quantum consciousness, the pure consciousness, the father of all being possible in the first place. We end the path of co-evolution between man and machine and take the new path of ennobling our genes, the ennobling of that which is already invested in ourselves, the spirit, the consciousness, the soul, all beings' essential power. Interviewer, why is it called crystalline? Does it have something to do with the genes which then react differently? Alexander replies, yes, it has something to do with the nature of the genes and the body on the one hand, and with the way we can sparkle on the other. Depending on how you bring the light and the sound into them, although these terms were now on the one hand concrete descriptions, and on the other hand they also stand for special metaphors. Crystallization is rather a metaphor for the exit from our seven-dimensional world, but it can just as well be taken for the state when we're about to step through the exit. Interviewer asks, what exactly happens? Laurent replies, well, that must be left to you. But don't worry, you'll make it. You have already developed the approaches, but they are not encouraged. Whoa, that dog is sitting on the... there we go. But they are not encouraged, they are suppressed and not published further. Ooh, doggy, you gotta get off. Stop itching your butt. There we go. All right. The interviewer asks, it has something to do with frequencies, doesn't it? Alexander Laurent replies, yes, dealing with frequencies is a main component to make information within our genome and body cells controllable over and through frequencies. On the same basis, evolution organizes itself. If DNA adapts epigenetically in a self-organized way, not only adaptation and selection plays a role. This is how the master AI and its demon species once influenced evolutionary processes. Well, the frequency influence of the analog body will be an essential part of groundbreaking developments in the beginning, only by specific electromagnetic frequency input and by permanent physical stimulation of special physical areas, similar to acupuncture. Later, more and more impure self-organization of the organism. This then opened the field to many new sciences and made possible discoveries about ourselves, about quantum interactions, because, so to speak, every soul with the DNA and matter it harbors is itself a quantum interaction from the hyperdimensional quantum consciousness and will therefore no longer depend solely on the geometric structures of our four-dimensional level as determined by AI. Interviewer, and that means no more diseases, eternal life, telepathic communication with each other through our genes or telekinesis? Alexander Laurent replies, yes, but this is only the beginning. The frequency is only one aspect of development, but from this alone, enormous medical progress will result, e.g. a much higher age or the improvement of a self-repair of the biological analog body. Even genetically switched off abilities are then released again, and our brain frequencies that have been switched off are switched on again, or in the beginning only stimulated, which leads to an improved ability to imagine, less aggressiveness, stronger intuition, the discovery and implementation of further frequencies for the brain will then even make it possible to develop telekinesis, telepathy, and special medial abilities. I better not say any more about the developments themselves because it is mainly about what is still developing spiritually from all the discoveries for you, for us. Interviewer asks, but to mention a few more things would be nice. Can't you suggest something? Alexander Laurent replies, well, I can go into individual results indirectly. Predicting time similar to time travel will become possible through the crystalline sparkle because we can only jump up in dimensions for a short time, but figuratively speaking, very high, so we can briefly overlook everything in time. Unbelievable. But this happens at the very end of time and has only something to do with future humanity, which will then catapult itself out of this dimensional prison by chance. Long before that, people will be able to move through space as sparkling beings. They will be able to travel through the cosmos solely through the capabilities of their analog bodies, without the limitations and disadvantages of the speed of light, relativity, or matter. Other things, i.e., the club, have also solved the disadvantages of temporal relativity when traveling through cosmic space by combining quantum entanglement for the transmission of data and their simultaneous physical and biological digitalization. But in contrast to these species, humans then no longer need any technical aids at all. Seen in this light, you might understand why I meant earlier that the species in the club act like Stone Age people. Even if I meant this in comparison, primarily in relation to our goal of returning to hyperdimensional quantum consciousness. So this is not the first time I've heard people mention that we will be evolving into a crystalline body. I heard it somewhere, I don't know, Telegram or something, one of the Telegram groups. So, and then, limitless, a limitless body awaits us. So, all right, interviewer says, traveling through space with body, just traveling somewhere, now reminds me of Star Trek, of this Q who can go anywhere and do anything he wants to do. Alexander Laurent says, yes, I know Star Trek. You can recognize certain correspondence to the club very nicely from the content spread in it. And the covert message that happiness for mankind lies in a big intergalactic club of different species. I also know that this character Q from the series, just as this figure moves through space and time, it will be for us spiritual people at some point in time, but humanity will not be endowed with such arrogance, self-righteous egoism, animal and childish destructiveness as this completely negatively overdrawn figure Q from Star Trek. By the way, this spiritually transcendent figure, which is portrayed in such an exceedingly negative way, serves to withhold all other developmental tendencies that are possible, i.e. spiritual developments from mankind into present them as the wrong path. This is what such science fiction series and films are for. They are suggestions and visions for a life in an intergalactic club. They should pave the way for people and make it palatable to them. Ancient myths and anecdotes about extraterrestrial visitors, Atlantis pyramids, religious and ancient mysteries, alleged time travel, parallel universes, and much more are methods of elite laymen to mentally and emotionally prepare mankind for the club and a transhumanistic existence. Such film series and documents are all deceptions and are manipulations and by no means ideas and visions of pre-people. It's propaganda, more propaganda from the elite. The elite always loves propaganda. The X-Files is such an example. Even if the series pretends to deal critically and distrustfully with the individual themes, this series constantly contributes to more confusions, distraction, distortion, and disinformation. And above all, intend to open up channel within us through which we can be pushed in a certain direction. If one day the encounter with extraterrestrials take place, supposedly Jesus returns, as other obscure things that have been going on Earth are to come out. So I guess, he doesn't like Jesus. There's no Jesus. It's very interesting though, because I never trusted this Jesus. Granted, I did not read the Bible from cover to cover, New Testimony or Old Testimony, King James or other. I did go to private school growing up. I don't know, I just never trusted that this idea of a Jesus. But it's interesting how cosmic agency, which again I don't know if it's I think it's mixed with a bunch of lies and truth. I don't feel they're 100% honest. And they don't believe in a Jesus. But those near-death experiencers, they do talk about Jesus, that they meet this Jesus person and they feel much love. Like they enter hell, and if as soon as they call for Jesus or God, they are immediately taken out of hell. And I remember listening to one where he confronted Jesus, and he wanted to stay in heaven or whatever realm he was with Jesus. He felt intense love, but Jesus pushed him to go back into the world, into earth, even though he didn't want to. And so he was obedient and he did what Jesus says. I just don't know if I could trust Jesus. You know, there's just so many conflicting information about Jesus. And when I die, Jesus better not come. You know, or any figure better not come to try to persuade me to go a certain way. Because come on, Nico, move your little head. Because I don't trust anything. I trust myself to go find limitless, to find, if I pass over, nobody can force me to go anywhere. I'm going to be very stubborn, and I'm going to be a limitless energy, spiritual being of consciousness or whatever. I'm going to not go anywhere where I will be confined once again. I don't know if I can trust this so-called Jesus. Anyways, in general science fiction, especially that concerning space and extraterrestrials, the messages transported by and within it almost all serve the purpose of classifying humans into a future existence as an interstellar traveling and interstellar existing species. Based on the science fiction movies and series shown everywhere today, we humans are prepared for this in our collective subconscious in the long term, like a kind of bait. That's why in science fiction series and movies, a lot is overdrawn. Extraterrestrial protagonists are mostly portrayed in a positive, wise, or innocent way. For example, the sitcom Alf. So that one gets a picture of the good and even funny alien. In such films and series that deal with space and extraterrestrials, there are, of course, also evil aliens. But all of this together mainly serves to get used to the topic of extraterrestrial presence, and evil aliens are then eliminated in such films. For example, through cooperation or alliances with good aliens. In science fiction, evil aliens are therefore more of a catalyst, anticipating an upcoming battle of good aliens against evil aliens and implanting this into our unconscious. If something like this had to be staged by the Club for Humanity, speaking of which, in such science fiction like Star Trek, interstellar travel in spaceship is presented as a completely natural developmental consequence of every species, as if this were the only true and correct step in development, as if there were no alternatives to it. While the heroes and stories in these films and series are predominantly inspiring for the idea, morality and lifestyle to be established, like an advertisement. At the core of all these formats is so subtly conveyed to us humans in the long run where our development must go, technically, socially, spiritually, and that otherwise we are an underdeveloped, backward, aggressive, and basically socially primitive and misguided species, and that we must join a better and higher idea to get out of it. And this is an impression one could certainly get when looking at the conditions of our planet. If one did not know who is actively working to make the situation so miserably for us humans, because why do you think we have so many problems? It has nothing to do with political and economic problems created by man himself and enumerated over and over again, or the supposedly innate malicious behavior or the apparent incapacity of mankind. It is all initiated, supported, constructed, and deliberately controlled by extraterrestrial powers. The ancient, earthly, digital nobility and more or less devoted, bona fide elites. That is why things are going so badly. Little by little, our extraterrestrial stalkers are getting closer to their goal of adding humanity to their club through digitalization. On the human individual, an absolute rearrangement of the old structures on this planet is to be carried out, which is to make every human being absolutely controllable, so that then, no matter which scenario is used for the equalization of the human beings by the catastrophes to be initiated, the desired digitalization can be carried out in the next centuries. Good luck on making me controllable. You will never, ever succeed. What are you going to do with me? Can you kill my consciousness off? I'm sure there are many like me who cannot be controlled and will give you hell if you tried. Or will pretend to be controlled and then turn around and stab you into the back and will get away with rebelling under your noses. Anyways, it's been a half hour. We will continue in the next video.